All right, it's the top of the hour and we are ready to get started. I'm Tom McDonald with the CIO Executive Council, and welcome to this special edition of the Power Hour. Today's edition is how to win prestigious awards for IT innovation, security, or digital leadership. Each year, hundreds of companies compete to win coveted IT awards from CIO, CSO, and Computer World, putting their most successful technology projects and achievements forward to be judged. But how do these winning companies do it? What's the secret ingredient in their applications? In this webcast, you'll hear directly from IDG executives who manage and run these programs. You'll also learn about individual award programs for rising IT stars and how the CIO Hall of Fame honorees are selected. But before we get started, I have just a couple of quick housekeeping items as everyone's dialing and logging in. This is an interactive session, and if you're logged into our Adobe platform, we encourage you to post any questions or comments you may have in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to work those into the conversation. We'll also post any relevant links along the way, so keep an eye out for that. And with that, I'd like to kick off the session and introduce today's host, our Group VP of Customer Experience and Operations at IDG. Welcome, Ann McCrory.
Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. This is Ann McCrory. It's such a delight to have all of you here today, and it's our pleasure to welcome you as we learn more about our awards programs here at IDG. And we're going to have a great hour sharing insights and stories about some of the amazing things we've seen in the past and will continue to see with all of you applying, hopefully, and everything that's out there now. So why don't we introduce our panel, and then we'll get started going into what the different awards are and everything you need to know about applying for them. So Mary Fran.
Hi there, Ann, and hello to our audience. Thanks very much for joining us today. I am the Executive Director of CIO Programs, and my main responsibility is for the CIO 100 Awards and also our Hall of Fame program. And both of those awards reach their culmination in an award ceremony at our big national event, the CIO 100 Symposium, which is held in the middle of August in either California or Colorado each year.
Fantastic. And Derek?
Sure. I'm Derek Hulitsky, VP of Content Development and Strategy here at IDG Events. And I manage our CSO 50 Awards program that we launched in 2013. And back then, we actually started this program as the CSO 40 program to recognize 40 organizations that demonstrated outstanding business value and thought leadership in their individual security efforts. Today, though, based on so much vigilance the companies have to maintain and invest with security, and also based on so much interest in this particular program, we changed the program to the CSO 50 in 2015. And there it remains for now. We recognize 50 companies with the CSO 50 awards.
Fantastic. Thanks, Derek. And as you know, I'm Ann McCrory, and I manage the Agenda program, which is the name of the conference, which is the place where we honor the Digital Edge Award winners and the Ones to Watch Award winners. And Digital Edge is now the Digital Edge 50. Like the CSO program, we started with Digital Edge 25, and now we're entering our fourth year with that program. Again, the Digital Edge 50, and that is open now. And then we also have our Ones to Watch Awards, which we're creating in conjunction with the CIO Executive Council. And we are resurrecting and renewing those this year for the first time. So a very exciting program. So let's move on to what our agenda is going to be today. We're going to talk a little more in depth about which awards we'll be reviewing here. We just mentioned them to all of you, but we have a nice list for you to reference. And then we'll go into some of the reasons why you might want to apply for one. There's a myriad number of benefits that apply to winning an award or even just applying for one that we'll talk about. And then I'm sure you're all very interested in what judges look for and what our judging process is, so we'll go through that in some depth as well. And then we'll do a deeper dive on each of the individual awards to give you more background, some examples and case studies of winners in the past. And then at the end, we have a couple of additional resources in addition to the ones that you see there that you can download today. So Mary Fran, why don't you take us through the list of awards here?
Great. Okay. Thanks, Ann. The CIO 100 Award is our biggest and oldest and probably best known of the awards that IDG sponsors each year. And you'll hear more about the award itself as we get going in our program. But basically, it's an award for IT innovation and business value delivery. And the CIO Hall of Fame is an award for outstanding CIOs and IT leaders in the industry. And you'll notice on two of both the ones to watch and the CIO Hall of Fame have a little asterisk after them, and that's to indicate that those are individual leadership awards. Everything else you see on the screen above is actually an award given to your company and to the IT organization as a whole. And that's often a distinction I have to make to remind people that the CIO 100 award is not an award for a CIO and their individual leadership. It's actually all about innovative projects that are going on throughout the IT organization, and the ones that end up in our application system are usually the top project that is not only doing something innovative with technology, but more importantly, from the judge's point of view, it's delivering some very real, very measurable business value. So that's the thing I'm always drumming into people's heads about the CIO 100s, is that they are for companies, they're for the whole organization, and that they're all about the innovation delivering that measurable business value. The Hall of Fame is an individual leadership award, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get going as well. But essentially, those are a handful of executives that either get nominated or self-nominate each year, and they go through an application and judging process that is run by the alumni members of the Hall of Fame. So it's very much a peer-to-peer award given, and they have to be CIOs with at least 10 years in a CIO position. So it's intended to be an award for someone at the peak of their CIO career, but not exactly ready to retire. We try to get people at kind of like that outstanding moment where they have a lot of great experience and they're well known in the industry. And so for the ones to watch, I'll turn that back over to you, Anne.
So the ones to watch, as we'll get into a little more depth, that is for rising stars in your organization. So one cannot actually be a CIO or have been a CIO or other C-level title in any job that you've had. So it's really an opportunity for the senior leadership to nominate people within their organization that are rising stars. And Derek, CSO 50?
Sure. So the CSO 50 is recognizing 50 organizations for individual projects that demonstrate thought leadership and outstanding business value. And we are producing our CSO 50 conference this coming February, and we're in the process of just finalizing the list of winners for 2018. Many of those organizations will be at the conference in Scottsdale in February of 2018. Our nominations will open shortly thereafter for the following year.
Great. And as I mentioned, I oversee the Digital Edge Award, which this year is the Digital Edge 50 once again, and looks for the way organizations are driving business value and even new lines of business through different digital technologies. And so next we'll look a little bit just at the schedule here. So you can see Digital Edge and Ones to Watch are open now, one through mid-October, Ones to Watch through the end of October. So there's still plenty of time to get your nomination in. And in fact, when you get to our links later in the presentation through our website, you can actually download the application ahead of time so you can see what's involved, and so you can go out and get all the information you need in order to produce a really thorough entry. And then the CIO 100 opens in November. That goes until February. And as Derek mentioned, the CSO 50 starts in the spring, usually around May. And then we also have the conference dates over here on the right. All of our awards programs result in a really wonderful gala at the event where everyone's honored and so forth. And we'll talk more about those benefits in just a minute. So why apply? So Derek, why don't you walk us through some of the benefits here?
Sure. Well, there's so many reasons organizations apply to our awards programs, but the best summary is probably that winning organizations, once they win, can immediately point out that they're a leading technology organization and innovator to other organizations. This results in PR opportunities both inside and outside of their organization, and it not only enhances the culture within a company, but it can make the organization more attractive when recruiting top talent, which is becoming an ongoing issue, particularly in the technology space today. Beyond all of that, winning organizations can also send representatives to attend our various conferences that Ann discussed on the last slide. And they do so with complimentary registrations. And Ann, can you take over?
Sure, yeah, sure. So it's our pleasure actually to extend a complimentary registration, whether it's for the individual award or for company award, to the person who is really the chief leader of the award, as well as a couple of teammates. So that's a great value for your company, and it's a really great morale booster and a really exciting time. A lot of your folks may not have been to an executive conference like this before, where they're able to hear a lot of great presentations. We also have speaking opportunities for you or your teams there as well. So it's a really great on-site experience, and we've just heard tremendous memorable stories about people that have come to the conference, have built off-sites around it with their teams. I remember I was on a plane coming home once, and a woman from the Department of Homeland Security happened to sit next to me, and she'd been at the conference, and she was just raving and had, like I said, took a whole off-site with her team and used this as a leadership development opportunity. So just a lot of goodwill is generated by those of you who are recognized at these awards.
Well, and Ann, if I can jump in there, one of the things we also noticed, like with the CIO 100, and I believe this is true also with Digital Edge Awards and the CSO 50, there's a whole variety of company sizes and industries that end up honored by these awards. And when Ann and I were at the CIO 100 in August, we were joined at one point by two gentlemen who were from the city of Windsor, Connecticut. And the city, the municipality, had won an CIO 100 for their, I think it was a huge website renovation project, or I don't even remember exactly what the project was, but they were so thrilled because they were such a small IT organization. They only had a handful of people, and they were just somewhat awed by the fact that they could end up being among the 100 best and most innovative IT organizations in the country, up against and standing side by side with huge companies like FedEx and Monsanto. And so that is one of the things that I think we all enjoy about working with these awards, is that they are not just given to like the Fortune 50. There's a whole span of company sizes and industries that are represented. And to that point that Ann made about how this generates great morale on the teams, it also generates some competitive spirit within the teams. One of our winners from the last 2 years, the San Francisco International Airport, has come home with a CIO 100 award, and the CIO there, Ian Law, told me a very heartwarming story about how much it meant to his team overall to have this kind of recognition. And they had been recognized by airport associations and that sort of thing, but it was an industry-wide recognition at the biggest conference that is produced about IT innovation. And he found that after they won the first one, other people from different groups in his IT organization were coming to him and suggesting, well, we should really submit something on this program, because this is actually something we're doing great stuff on. And the people in the department all wanted to make sure that he had to get extra copies of the plaque that they received at the award so that he could hang them up in different parts of the IT organization. And the CIO himself was actually quite surprised by all of this, because we often think that IT people are kind of heads down and just doing their job, and they don't get impressed by all the marketing and salesy kind of stuff that goes on around them. But much to his surprise, his department was just really kind of deeply touched and impressed by the fact that they had gotten this award.
Right. And Derek, you had a point about the CSO 50 that you wanted to make.
I do, and my voice is back. Thanks, Ann, for taking over a minute ago. So yes, with the CSO 50, companies are really interested in one of the interesting benefits once they win, and that is to actually present the project at the event. There are 50 winners, and the majority of those organizations are represented on site at our CSO 50 conference. And more than half of them actually present. We have, unique to this particular conference, a short presentation format. It's much like a TED conference. So the presentations are 18 minutes long. Without Q&A, there's opportunity for Q&A within the program later, but this gives us over 2.5 days an opportunity to have as many as 30 of the winning organizations present their their project, and that naturally is very enticing to a lot of organizations who've won. They like to attend, they like to hear the other projects, and they like the opportunity to present.
Great, thanks, Derek. And I think that's true of all of our events, actually. We do tend to showcase many of the winners on stage, whether it's through the lightning rounds like you just described, sort of like a TED Talk, or panels, or case studies, or breakouts. There's just many opportunities, and that really makes it a very memorable experience, really for everyone, because everyone wants to learn from the expertise of those that we're able to showcase. So why don't we move on now to the judging process, which I'm sure you're all quite interested in. Our nominations for all of our programs are reviewed and scored by external judges. So it's not us here at IDG deciding who wins and who is unable to make the roster that year. We have an extensive network of all kinds of IT executives and CIOs, as well as industry experts of different types, analysts, education people, academics, et cetera, that we've worked with over the years, including many past winners. So we have a very rigorous process in the way that every application is read by at least 2 judges who score it on a number of criteria. And those vary a little bit by program, but there's definitely some metrics behind this. And then judging is based solely on the information you provide in the online application. So we don't allow links to other things. Judges don't have the time to go researching projects or companies on top of what's provided in the application. So the onus is really on the applicant to really showcase entirely the value of the project and what you did and so forth, and the significance of it to your organization, if not the industry, within that application. And so all the judging comes in, and when everyone is ranked based on the scores that we receive. We do not make those public. All of our awards is either 100 or 50 or 40 or 25 or whatever it is. It's one group, so we just use that internally to see who makes the cut. And it is very competitive, which we'll get into a little bit as well. But then the final selections are confirmed by us here. Occasionally there are ties and so forth, and we need to go back out to some judges. We also allow the judges to make comments. So we use those during our award ceremony, certainly, but also those help us understand why certain entries scored higher than others. So Mary Fran and Derek, do you have anything to add to the judging process here? Next up, we'll look at what judges look for. Maybe you can add some additional color there.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. And the number one point on this slide really is the complete and clearly written text point. It is very important not to just do the minimum on these applications. I've seen numerous times CIO 100 judges will have to kind of throw their hands up because someone is filling out the form, and instead of like filling in the 300 to 500 words they might have in a space to describe their project, they just have a sentence or two. And so the judges are just a little bit at a loss because they don't have enough information. So it's important to kind of tell a story in the applications, and we try to make that as easy as possible by the way the questions are phrased. And I know in the CIO 100 applications, we give little examples about, please tell us more about the business impact of your project, and use as many metrics and financial results as you can. And in some cases, companies are very concerned about the sensitivity of some of their financial data, but we always provide a place on any part of the form that asks for financial data. The applicants can click a box that says, do not publish this. And so the information won't show up on CIO.com, and we won't speak about it on our stages. But that before and after descriptions of the impact that the project has, I think is probably the most important part to the judges. They do bring a lot of industry expertise to their judging and their evaluating, but they don't know every single industry. So if you're in the manufacturing industry and what your company has done with this project is actually making you a leader amongst other companies like that, that's a great thing to point out. To say that, we are actually the very first in our particular industry to be using machine learning in an application that is directly engaging with our customers, for instance. So the specificity of the information and just telling a little bit of a story around it, like here's what things looked like before and here's how they ended up afterwards. Oh, and our business was very pleased because here's where the real results. And we have some more examples of those further on in the slides. And then for the candor about challenges along the way, I'll toss it back over to Derek.
Sure. Thanks, Mary Fran. So judges are looking for authentic and very genuine stories. And what this means is that you really need to include in a submission some of the pitfalls that you might have encountered along the way with a particular project. When judges are comparing submissions, this kind of authenticity can really stand out. And the judges sometimes review submissions that have been prepared by a vendor organization on behalf of the nominated company. And often those submissions are really just 100% positive, and they don't have some of the granular detail about some of the things that might have tripped them up along the way, and some of the genuine nature of the project doesn't come through. So what catches a judge's eye is when they know that people in the nominated organization itself who've actually worked on the initiative are also involved in the submission, and they're helping to convey the story. And very importantly, the judges are looking for metrics and statistics that back up how the initiative made or continues to make some kind of a difference. We receive many submissions without the metrics, and judges are more likely to score a submission higher if the metrics are included.
Well, and that was a great point, too, about, you know, the marketing language and the candor that is required. And I think a lot of, sometimes IT organizations, I think, feel a little bit at a loss about how to word things well enough. They tend not to be marketing word-oriented people in a lot of cases. But I think it's great to get your PR people and your marketing folks involved in helping to improve the language in the application. But it's so much more critical that the people that know the most about the project are truly involved in it. And Derek and I were talking earlier today about how sometimes we see an application from a vendor organization that is telling one of those happy, wonderful stories about how things went with a project, and they haven't even told the client that they're applying for the award. They probably feel like, oh, they want to surprise them and won't this be wonderful? But unfortunately, our judges tend to see right through that very quickly. And they're looking for that balance of the challenges overcome and what this project really accomplished. And they can tell when they don't see it, when it's a lot of marketing language and glowing reports. It's great to have positive language in an application, but it can't be in there to the exclusion of sort of the real details that tells more of the story of how a particular award-winning selection came about.
And I think, too, Mary Fran, this is Ann, an important thing is, I mean, many organizations, particularly on the PR and marketing side, tend to repurpose award nominations and apply to a lot of different things with basically the same write-up of information. And a lot of times we'll find that there are entries that read very well and they're very interesting, but they either don't meet the criteria of the program or they don't really answer the questions the way they really should if they had been written net new from scratch. So not that you can't repurpose some of the language, obviously, in some things if you're applying for multiple awards, but I think taking that time to read through it and making sure it's customized enough to meet our criteria and really answer the questions is really important.
Well, and on more than one occasion, too, I've seen awards entries where the name of another awards program is actually in the application where it should say CIO 100. It says some other, some competitor's award program. And I think that's like PR people sending, a personalized letter to someone with the wrong name. It doesn't impress.
Exactly. So let's go a little deeper then into some of our different awards, and we'll start at the top with the CIO 100.
Okay, thank you very much, Ann. The CIO 100, as I mentioned, it's our oldest and our biggest awards program. It started in 1988, just a year after the founding of CIO Magazine itself. And one of the kind of wonderful things about it over the years is that it has always been about innovation and business value delivery. I think that is probably one of the reasons why there is so much familiarity and respect for this awards program throughout the industry, not just that it's been around forever and a day, because let's face it, 30 years in the IT industry really sounds like it's practically a founding fathers awards program, but it has always had that focus on the balance between innovation and business value. And each year we do a lot of promoting and reminding people that the CIO 100 is coming. You'll start seeing a lot of this more in your online mailboxes as we get closer to the launch in November for the 2018 program. But each year we get somewhere between 350 and 400 applications. And they, and again, this slide reminds you that it's not individual award, it's for the entire organization. And the ones who end up getting through our judging process and earning the most points for both the innovation and the business value delivery are the ones who are the top 100. And as Ann mentioned, we don't disclose the scores anywhere. A CIO 100 winner is a winner. Whether they scored 20 points or whether they scored 15 points, it doesn't really matter externally. We just use that internally to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, essentially. And some of the criteria that are worth looking at before you apply include here. These are just some prompting questions about whether your organization took a big risk on a new technology, but it doesn't even have to be a new technology. The business results and the innovative impact on the business itself are actually more important than the technology itself. We've had some winners that launched a project 3 or 4 years ago, and because not everything is an overnight success in IT, and it's perfectly okay in this particular awards program for a project to be a few years old, and the benefits are starting to really be seen now. And the project types vary all over the map. They can be something that has generated a better business process. It can foster more collaboration. It can be a deeper way to engage with customers. It can be the launch of an entirely new revenue-generating part of the business. That especially impresses the judges. And ways that you pursue new markets or diversify what the company's doing. The cutting costs and increasing revenue is kind of an old standby favorite, but these days of so much digital transformation, a lot of the awards that are winning, in fact, we noticed this specifically this past year, a lot of them have to do with a much smarter use of data analytics. We had well over half of the CIO 100 winners in the 2017 batch were business intelligence and data analytics projects. And then, as we mentioned on here, there's, the winning applications always have a lot of data, a lot of specific examples, and then that storytelling part of it, where you're detailing the customer and the impact on them or the market impact of the work itself. And then at the bottom of this slide and also in our resources slide at the end of the presentation, there's a whole lot more information about this online. So we can move on to the next one, Ann.
There you go, Mary Fran.
Okay.
Judging?
Yes, the judging. Each year we make sure, because we get nearly 400 applications, and we want each application to be read by 2 judges, and they're aware of each other and they communicate about the application so that by the time the scoring is all done online, and by the time they, have put in their numbers, whether they judge something is a 5 and really excellent or something is a 2 and not so impressive, they generally have coordinated with each other. And they rate the application on that 1 to 5 for each of 4 different criterion. And the final selections then are reviewed by myself and some of the editors we work with, and then in April of 2018, we notify the winners. And these are just a few project samples. We've got an online database of all the winners from 2017 heading back, I think, to 2007. So I think we have 10 years worth of data. CIO.com publishes an online winner database, and you can click through on each company and see a little blurb that tells you about what their award was given for and a few other details about it, like the business value to which department. Sometimes it's an award that has really improve things for the marketing department. Other times it might be operations or sales and so forth. And these winning samples on here are just a couple that I grabbed that were very highly rated by the judges. The first one from Gulfmark Offshore was a big business model transformation, and it ended up streamlining their headcount, brought them whole new levels of enterprise scalability. So they were basically able to globalize a business that had been very divided up in a regional fashion. The Merck Manufacturing platform, Mantis, was one of our presenters in those lightning rounds that Derek mentioned before, where we have a few winners on stage talking for a few minutes about their projects. One of the presenters at our August event was from Merck about this Mantis project, and it's just, when I say significant volumes of data from all these different sources throughout Merck, significant is almost too small a word. I mean, it was just billions and billions of pieces of data, and they were able to show very impressive business results from it, like the 50% reduction in their average inventory carrying costs. And we find that in a lot of the successful applications to the 100. There's very specific business benefits that get talked about. It's great to cut IT costs and to do projects 45% faster, but those details alone on the IT side never impress the judges as much as the business numbers do. And then that last one, just a different kind, a use of cognitive computing from R.R. Donnelley, where they created this freight cost engine, and they were able to, they're using this now in the market competitively to win business. I mean, they were able to actually turn around and they grew a whole 2% increase in their revenue, which for a $600 million business is a significant jump up. And it was something that the CEO and all the business leaders attributed very directly to this IT project. And then we skipped over, there was a slide in there with some of the useful links to these different things that I was just talking about. And then the Hall of Fame Awards is our other awards program that we do at the CIO 100 each year. This one is the Leadership Award for individuals. And it has been around for about 20 years, and it looks for candidates who have had a profound influence on the IT discipline, on using technology in business, and especially giving back to the community and advancing the CIO role. And the candidates are often nominated by other CIOs. My alumni members, were up to 105 alumni members of the Hall of Fame now, and I often, probably by next month, I'll start pinging some of those members and asking them to nominate potential members of the Hall of Fame. And then once someone is nominated, they receive a letter from us congratulating them and asking them if they would please fill out their application. And the application is pretty simple. It's 3 career-related essay-type questions where we ask about their career accomplishments and the things they're most proud of in their leadership as a CIO. And then once I have the applications in, I pull together a panel of our alumni Hall of Fame judges, and I assign at least 5 judges to each application, and as soon as I have a majority rule of 3 yeses or more, then someone is invited to join the Hall of Fame. And there's links on here where you can learn more about it at the FAQ, and also if you want to view a current list of all the Hall of Fame members, that's available online as well.
Great. Thanks, Mary Fran. Very rigorous judging indeed for that Hall of Fame Awards. Great. So next I'll take you through the Digital Edge 50. So this award is, as mentioned, we're looking for companies and organizations that are really achieving with different types of digital projects. You'll see on the left here a number of different types of projects that you might consider submitting. As Mary Fran mentioned about CIO 100, certainly a good number of these recently have been in the data area. So whether you're building a new data stream type of business, line of business, or product for other companies, for peer companies, for your customers, that's been a big one. Employee productivity, business efficiency, business capabilities, adding new features and so forth to reach customers and service them, et cetera. On the right, you'll see the types of technology. And again, for these projects, we're asking for an overall project description, but typically they do follow along certain lines in terms of the business aims, which is the project type, and then the type of technology that you're using to enable that. So this year we saw a lot of things about augmented reality and Internet of Things, analytics. Collaboration and social was very big a couple of years ago. We're not seeing as much of that now, but that's still front and center as a category. So you can look through those at your leisure there. And some of the key criteria for this particular award, unlike the CI 100, we do have a limitation as far as when this project could have been started, because we're looking for companies that are really advancing their organization and their business with digital, so the projects cannot have been in production for longer than 24 months. And you also must have a tech and a non-tech sponsor listed on your form. There are some exceptions to that, where if it's a real IT-driven type of transformation, it may be the same person or different people within the CIO's organization. But typically things are, involving different customer functions in the business or operations and so forth. So we ask you for who those folks are. And then we've talked about this a little bit already, but just the need for some metrics to really show how your project has come to fruition and is really paying off. Certainly the storytelling is wonderful, but we really need to see that it's also, or the judges really need to see that it's also really making a difference for the investment that you've made. So some winner examples here from the past couple of years. So Domino's was a big one a couple of years ago in 2016 for their mobile ordering via all different kinds of platforms, emojis, smart TV, voice-assisted ordering, a real transformation story. And their chief digital officer did a fantastic presentation at the conference just about what that looked like starting I think around 2007 or so, the transformation itself, but then these technologies were employed just in that previous year to the award. And they had enormous documented sales growth by their digital channels. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something like 3 times the overall business, and they had really leapfrogged their sales through other means. Another one to talk about is Dalian Wanda Group. They are a Chinese real estate company. Among other things, they own sports arenas and these giant retail complexes. And they built a hybrid cloud application that manages all of their building systems across 200 different plazas. So all the heating and air conditioning and automatic parking booths and all kinds of things. Very sophisticated stuff. And they saw tremendous savings in terms of energy costs because it was IoT-driven, so lights and heat and so forth automatically went down at night, and staffing costs as well because they were able to monitor the systems remotely, among many other benefits. And then one of the more unusual ones was Case Western Reserve University this year for an augmented reality application. And they were just at the start of their journey with this and had just started doing it, but their aim for this was actually replacing cadaver labs in medical schools. And they were building a new medical school without that type of facility that they would have previously had in the medical school, and doing it all through the HoloLens application and the courses that they were building for that. And they were able to demonstrate it through video on stage, and they met all of their milestones, which again wasn't certainly metrics based in terms of savings or anything like that, but they were actually changing medical education and really forging a new path and had met all their milestones to really aggressively roll that out. So again, looking for some really cutting edge types of applications here. Here's some useful links for you as well. As we've mentioned, it's open right now, so you can download a copy of the nomination form right from the application. And also open right now is our Ones to Watch award, which, as I mentioned, we are relaunching. And this is a great award for rising stars in an organization. So typically managers, directors, even VPs, just not C-levels. So that's our one constraint there. So, and people can nominate themselves or peers nominate them. Certainly senior executives or their managers can nominate them. And we're really looking for a track record of success in a certain project they've done where they really demonstrated some great leadership skills. And that includes communication and collaboration and really understanding the business side as well and the business goals. So, and just to make sure that that person is endorsed by the senior IT executive as someone who is a rising star, we need their participation in the application with a 50-word statement about why this person is deserving of this wonderful award. And
And Ann, I wanted to mention that that's something that I remember when we were doing this program some years ago, we would mention it to CIOs too, because they sometimes were not aware that they could be nominating their folks for this. And I think we got some of our best responses that way.
Right, absolutely. So, and as Mary Fran said about Hall of Fame, for this as well, you can win only once. So even if you switch jobs, it is a lifetime award. So, and with that, we'll turn it back to Derek for more about the CSO 50.
Sure. Thanks, Ann. So our CSO 50 awards for 2019 will open May 1st of 2018. And for that, we're looking for great stories that convey thought leadership and business value. And really, more specifically, what that means is that they need to show innovation and how those efforts are making a measurable impact on the organization with risk and security. Nominations can be about any aspect of security or risk in a corporate environment, and in recent years we've seen submissions about things like identity management, security automation, third-party risk, security awareness, critical infrastructure, the various aspects of compliance, and so on. As we mentioned earlier, winning organizations are invited to present at the CSO 50, and we usually see at least 2/3 of those organizations that won come to present or discuss their project in some type of setting, and nearly all the winning organizations attend.
Great.
And the next slide, Ann?
Yep. Talking about judging, right?
Sure. So we have approximately 20 judges for this particular program, and it's a mix of practitioners that are CISOs or CSOs or are senior executives in IT, and it's also a mix of some industry experts. Our judges are rating on a variety of different criteria, and the final selections for next year's program will be made so that the winners can be notified in September of 2018. That's for the 2019 program.
Great.
And just to give you an idea, as both Ann and Mary Fran did for the other programs, of some winning projects recently, Jackson Health had a really interesting program that won this past year. They were faced with a very limited budget. Healthcare has its own individual concerns about security and has become a big target in the last few years. So they really found a way to make their budget work and create an extremely secure environment just through some innovative thinking about how they got things done there. And their submission included some metrics, and they had a really good outcome from this whole exercise. Kimberly-Clark demonstrated a really fascinating security awareness and training program, and it was global for tens of thousands of employees worldwide, and they were able to demonstrate how, through some metrics, they reduced all sorts of risk to the organization around the world. And a third really good example is an organization called Viewpost, who, through some internal folks there who coded and developed some software, they were able to analyze different ways that their customers could be assessed based on risk and any financial crimes tied to those potential organizations and some of their relationships with some other companies. And just by having visibility into all of that, they were able to really bring their fraud prevention to a higher level. This created a lot of efficiency. They did it on a minimal budget because they used internal folks, and they reduced some of their overall costs. So these are the kinds of submissions that won this past year. So you can see that business outcomes and innovative thinking are really what are at the core of all these three samples here. And this is a slide that shows just some links if you have more interest in the CSO 50 program, and it also shows our conference date for next year if there's any interest in participating in that event.
Great.
I was going to say one of the things I've noticed over time is that the attendees who come to these events, because there are 5 or 6 times as many people there at the events who actually haven't won the awards, it tends to really kind of whet their appetite for getting more into it because they see all these benefits that we talked about earlier, people that are part of the STAGE program, you know, the additional attention to their companies, just kind of the measure of pride that you get from the people that have come a long distance with their own IT operations or with their cybersecurity or their digital work, and they've gotten an award for it. So it tends to almost be a constant feeding mechanism, I guess, that when you see this going on at conferences, it certainly helps the competitive spirit, I think, rise up in other IT organizations as well.
Great. And actually, it looks like we have a question, so why don't we jump to that? The question is, Mary Fran mentioned a diversity of industries and smaller organizations winning. How does that happen? And actually, Mary Fran, if you don't mind, I have an answer too. Let me just jump in first.
Okay.
For the Digital Edge, I didn't go into our judging in any depth. But the way that we do it is we put two judges on a certain industry, so they're comparing like applications with like applications. So in that way, based on all the judges scoring across the different industries, we have a very decentralized approach so that we make sure that different types of industries can win. Because in the digital space, it could be all financial services, for example, if we really went for all the super cutting-edge, leading-edge things, but we want to make sure, because there's so much out there and so many organizations doing different things, and often some of the best innovation is on a smaller end of an organization with, they have to be more creative just given their resources, but their creativity can really be pretty unlimited. So that's just one example of one of our programs and what we do. But
well, that's a good point about how differentiated these awards programs actually are, because while we have our share of awards for digital excellence that turns up in projects that become CIO 100 winners, we have a lot more of them that are actually doing some of that heavy lifting back office work that a lot of companies have had to do. I think probably the biggest thing about the CIO 100 is how generalized it is, that it's about innovation that shows that leads to business value, and it can be in all parts of the business. So that tends to attract everyone from, like, that small city in Connecticut, Anne, where we met those two IT leaders from, all the way up to a company like FedEx, which is, and there are companies like that are in the Fortune 100 who have made it a real habit over the years to keep as part of their own IT marketing and to instill a sense of pride in their IT organization. They apply for the 100 every year. I know Verizon is often one of the applicants on the 100, and companies like Monsanto have won multiple times over the years, AT&T, Accenture, a lot of the very household names. And I know with a company like FedEx, I think out of the last 30 years, they've won 25 different times. And on those 5 times when they didn't win, the CIO called me up and said, well, what did we do wrong this year? And of course, oftentimes it was something where they'd already gotten an award for it, or it was something that it was in a project that wasn't showing enough business value yet. I don't know if we made the point during all our discussions that it tends to subtract from the judge's interest in a program if it's only partially deployed. It's things that are fully deployed and truly rolled out. That's usually the only way you can actually show business results. And sometimes you have initial business results, but a project is only maybe 9 months into an 18-month rollout. And in cases like that, we often recommend to the applicants that they come back again next year with the project and apply again. And that's one of the things you can certainly do with the CIO 100. It may not be ready for the Prime Time Award at the point when a company applies, but I've definitely seen some of them that have gathered more business metrics and then come back and won an award the following year. And sometimes they fall just a little short because it's not fully deployed and it doesn't have much to show for itself yet. So I think that just in summary, I think it is the generalized nature of innovation and business value, which I think every company in every industry, every size, they're all trying to show that these days. And we're never going to turn it into the CIO 100 for digital success or anything that specific, because that overall umbrella of innovation and business value delivery have been so fundamental to what has made the CIO 100, I think, such a long-lived awards program.
Right. Great answer, Mary Fran. Great to hear that all of that is going on. It looks like we have more questions coming in. Jonah from PayPal wants to know if there are any individual awards to recognize CIOs with less than 10 years in a CIO role.
Hi there, Jonah. It's Mary Fran. We don't have anything recognizing that. There are, I think, other awards programs out. They tend to be CIO of the Year, or sometimes the technology vendor companies will recognize specific CIOs. But it's always been for the CIO Hall of Fame that longevity in the CIO role is one of the cornerstones of the award itself, because I'd say on average the CIOs who are invited to join the Hall of Fame have at least 15 years of CIO experience. And I do encounter CIOs who are 6 or 8 years into it, and they may be a big name in their industry, and sometimes they apply for the Hall of Fame, and I have to regretfully suggest that they come back in 2 or 3 more years. The feedback I get from the alumni judges is generally that you have to be through a lot of ups and downs in the IT cycles. You have to have that at least a decade in a CIO role to have kind of genuinely experienced the whole range of issues and leadership moments and problems and challenges that CIOs end up dealing with.
Right. Thanks, Mary Fran. And that's actually an interesting idea for the future, is considering to do some kind of award like that. Although I think we're pretty full up at the moment.
I know. I was thinking somewhere in between a ones to watch and a Hall of Fame. There's a lot of great work going on. I tend to try and direct those CIOs to the 100 and say, we don't have an award for you individually right at this moment in your career, but I'll bet your IT organization is doing some great stuff. Let's put the spotlight on them.
Right. Great. And we have another question about really the difference between the CIO 100 and the Digital Edge Awards, and just confirming sort of what the scope of each of those are. So I'll take a stab at the Digital Edge part of that. So with Digital Edge, given that projects have to have been deployed within the last 24 months, we're looking for very recent things. Typically, we have added categories now, since many organizations are further along in their digital journeys, for overall digital business, right, which then would encompass a number of initiatives sort of under that umbrella, some of which may have been deployed sooner, but it's really you're reaching that digital point in your organization at the time that you're applying for the award. But many of them also are more point projects. So it's more of a mobile thing or an AI thing or a machine learning thing, something very discrete that you can show particular results for. That is really giving your organization a so-called digital edge, either against your competitors or against your own internal benchmarking or in the industry compared to what you were doing before.
Okay. Well, and I would weigh in on the 100 and say that one of the a really useful way for people that like to dive into the data and the background a little bit more in the form of a chart, the link that we have that is to the online, essentially the description, the CIO 100 project descriptions, they're divided up there by company, industry, business function, the business goal, and then the CIO's name is listed. And, I'm looking at it on the site now, and for instance, under the business functions, the awards end up being given in categories like asset management, human resources, customer service, sales, engineering, accounting and finance, manufacturing. These are, all parts of the company, research and development, customer service or support, supply chain, logistics, essentially a whole lot of company benefits. Some of those areas aren't necessarily good candidates for something that is very leading edge digital, but they can be extremely good candidates for something that's a real business, a bottom line benefit for the company.
Right. And a follow-on question as far as, does the work need to have been done by employees of the organization or by a systems integrator? And I can say that anything that's done through a partnership, it is the organization that brings in the partner that wins the award. So if you do work for an SI or other type of consulting firm, you can certainly nominate one of your customers, but it will be the customer that actually wins the award. Yeah. Since obviously they will have been involved in much of the business process and much of the other aspects of the project, even if they didn't do the technical implementation themselves.
Yes, and that is the same for the CIO 100. We often will have, PR and marketing people involved in the applications because they've encouraged one of their customers to step forward with the project. But if it's too much about the technology itself and not enough understanding and knowledge about the actual business benefits, that usually the judges notice that right away. But as Ann said, it is the customer that gets the award, and it's up to them if they want to mention who their important technology vendor, that sort of thing. So the honors definitely do get heaped on the customer.
Right.
That was a great question.
Yeah.
These questions are very good.
No, great questions. So I think we're just about out of time here, so I'll turn it back to Tom in just a moment, but I just want to thank all of you who joined us today. I hope you learned a lot about our programs. I hope you got very excited about our programs and very eager to look at what we have to offer and start those applications. We're excited and very thrilled to look forward to all of that. So Tom, back to you.
All right, Ann, thank you so much. And I hosted a webcast last week on the CIO 100 winners, and one of the winners there talked about how great it was for his whole organization for them to be able to accept that award on their behalf, and quote unquote one of the highlights of his career. So definitely feel like it's...
I love stories like that.
And yeah, we have that transcript of that, so we know he said it. But at this point, we'd like to thank Ann, Mary Fran, Derek, and our producer Robin Clausen, and everyone who attended today. The link to a short questionnaire is on the screen now. It would also be emailed to you shortly. If you could take a moment to fill that out. Your feedback is valuable, and we want to hear from you. Also, continue with the award themes this month. I want to invite you to attend our next webcast, where you hear about 5 of the best places to work in IT. We have a panel of organizations, of folks from the organizations that won that, and you can learn what they're doing that got them nominated and won that award. Then in October, you can hear about cybersecurity insights and selling your strategy to the board. So hopefully you register for those and see you there. All right, this concludes today's session. On behalf of the CIO Executive Council, thank you for joining us, and see you next time.